Dear friends, welcome back to Learn Easy with Jay. In the last video, we discussed about an introduction to research, objectives and characteristics of research. Now, in this video, we are going to discuss about criteria and qualities of a good research, need for research, scope and significance of research, and problems in research. So what is the criteria of a good research? In my opinion, any research is a good research because you gain new knowledge, a lot of new insights about the subject you are researching, right? But then there are certain thumb rules to call a research a good research. The first thing is the purpose should be clearly defined, right? Without having a target or without knowing your destinations, you cannot travel. Likewise, without having a solid objective, you cannot pursue your research. So this the solid purpose which you have in mind will actually drive you throughout the research. It will lead you to the desired objective or the goal. Right. Next thing is research process should be detailed. Now the process should apply all these things like formulating a research problem, identifying a problem, to literature survey, developing hypothesis, preparing the research design, determining the sample size, collecting the data, analyzing the data, hypothesis testing, to writing the interpretation and conclusion. All these things should be done in a detailed fashion. Then only your research will be complete in all the aspects. And the next thing is research design should be thoroughly planned. Before taking up a research, do a lot of planning, spend a lot of time. Doesn't matter, right? You can even spend a 6 months duration to decide on your topic, right? Think on those lines whether the research project you're taking, is the need of the hour. Is the project is going to be viable? Is it going to be useful to the people, uh, to the community or the end user? Think on those lines and think whether it will give the same sort of an interest throughout the process, right? If you are going to, live with that research for the next 4 5 years. So, think on those lines whether, it will help you, whether it will give you the same amount of interest throughout. So think on those lines. It has to be planned thoroughly, right? What sample size you are going to choose, what is the area you are going to choose, right? How you are going to approach the respondents, how you are going to, what are the tools you are going to apply. All those things needs to be planned well in advance. And next thing is high ethical standards to be applied, right? Research, any researcher for that matter, right from collecting the data, the respondents data, to writing the suggestions or conclusion, he needs to follow high ethical standards, right? Most of the times, respondents give you a lot of personal information, right? All those sensitive information needs to be protected. You cannot you're not supposed to use it for other purposes, right? Sometimes they might give their income particulars, their purchase behavior, all those things you'll be collecting as part of your research. Not only that, but wherever possible, even while collecting the data, don't try to be genuine as much as possible. The researchers should be, following high ethical standards altogether. Next thing is limitation should be frankly revealed in your subject. Any research for that matter, you will have certain limitations like lack of time, because you might have a shorter duration to complete your research. So time could be a limitation. Sometime inadequate funds, non-availability of funds, because some research requires a lot of funds to be poured in. So lack of fund could be a problem. Inadequate uh, literature, right? Previous study on those topics may not be available. Those are these are a couple of things that are that come as a limitation to you. Put all those limitation in your study, in your research, so that the next person who's taking the research will try to overcome, will try to address these limitations in his study. Next thing is adequate analysis for decision makers needs. Whoever is your target, respondent, or the end user, right? Your analysis should actually pave way for decision making, right? It should give a clear cut idea for the person to take decisions based on the research, right? So without that, there is no point in writing a research itself, right? Findings presented unambiguously, right? The findings should be crystal clear. You can write findings in bullet points, right? Each idea can be given one point, or written in a single point, so that your idea reaches the reader, in the intended way, in the intended meaning. So it should not be ambiguous in nature, right? Conclusion should be justifiable, right? Because uh, until your interpretation, because till you write your interpretation, it is going to be based on the data, but then the last two parts, like suggestions and conclusions, are going to be completely based upon your understanding and knowledge. So justify your conclusion basically, right? The last one is researcher's experience should be reflected in that research, right? You know, a good researcher, will review a lot of literature, basically, at least 20 to 25 journals or magazines, and other articles. He'll study, he'll quote all those things in his research, right? He'll use the advanced statistical tools. He'll use the most important formulas, while processing the data. So all those things should be reflected in that research. So these are some of the qualities of a good research. One, it should be systematic in nature. There should be a step-by-step procedure, to be followed from the beginning to the end. It should be logical and empirical, backed by a solid evidence and first-hand study, and it should be replicable. Somebody should be able to take up your project to the next level. Suppose you have done a study in a particular city, right? The next researcher should be able to do it in a bigger way, in a bigger fashion. Like he should be able to do the same study in a state level or in a national level, or probably some other researcher in some other country should be able to follow your pattern, should be your should be able to follow your methodology. All right. It should be creative in all possible manners. It should use multiple methods, right? Olden days, like simple research, they use only a percentage analysis method, but then an advanced research should apply multiple methods, right? Multiple applications to be done while interpreting the data. So why would people do research? Most of the people do research for one of the following reasons. Now, one, to explore something new. Let's assume that you are a tourism secretary for a particular state, and you see that your neighboring state is doing extremely well in tourism, right? In spite of challenges, in spite of calamities, in spite of tough times, they come back, they bounce back much faster and bigger, right? You want to study their model, right? You take up a research, you try to explore, and in the process you become an expert in understanding the things, right? You come back and you implement the same sort of a concept in your state, and then later your state will also be successful in that area. So to become an expert in a particular field, you can take up a exploratory research. Secondly, to describe something, people take up to describe something better, to describe something in depth. You can take up research. For example, if you ask a student to describe about corona, right, he might give his understanding. You ask the same question to a professor, right, he might give you a little more information about the virus. Right? You ask the same thing to a scientist or a doctor, right? He'll be able to give an in-depth knowledge about that particular virus, right? So it is like this: those who do a lot of research will have an in-depth idea about that particular study area. So third thing is to diagnose something new, right? You find a problem and you want to know why it is happening, or what are the reasons that are behind that problem. So to understand something, you take up research. So that could also be one of the reasons for taking a research. And hypothesis, as I said, I have an assumption, right? I presume things. So I might have framed a presumptive statement. So to test that statement, I can take up research, right? So at the end of the study, I'll come to know whether my statement is right or wrong. So that's called hypothetical testing. Next is induction and deduction. These are scientific approaches to research. Right? Induction always moves from observation to ideas, and deduction moves from ideas to observation. Right? So a researcher might want to understand how it works, how the situation works, how is the current thing. Next, we are going to discuss about the scope and significance of research. Any research should lead to a decision-making process. You would have started with a problem, and you would have got some understanding in the due course of research process. And at the end of the project, you would have got a lot of information from the research. You would have identified why the problem is happening. You would have come up with a lot of solutions. So you put everything in your conclusion statement and your suggestion statement. Anybody who's reading that report should be able to take decisions instantly, right? That's the ultimate objective of research. And research throws light on risks and uncertainty. Definitely, anybody who's going through a research thesis will be able to identify those vulnerable areas, those weaker areas, and they'll try to address those things, those aspects at the end of the study. And research should identify alternative course of action. Definitely, research suggests alternative, possibilities to approach a problem. It gives plenty of options to us. Research helps in economic use of resources. Definitely, research will help us to responsibly utilize or exploit the resources. The people should use it for today, keep it for tomorrow, and keep it for others. And research helps in project identification. Definitely, any exploratory type of research will help in project identification and new project analysis and things like that. Research solves investment problems. Definitely, for example, you approach a market intelligence company and they do a survey for your new product, right? So they give you a detailed report about the new product, right? And project says that there is a lot of scope for that particular new product, right? Your business proposal along with this project report, if you take it to investors or if you take it to the banks, you will chances are that you are likely to get your funding immediately, right? Angel investors would be deeply interested in going through your research report before even going through the business proposal. Next, again, research solves pricing problems. When you do a thorough research, you understand how much a customer is willing to pay for your product, or how much they are willing to shell out to solve a particular problem. Research helps in solving HR issues. Often, HR managers undertake small study to understand the satisfaction level of the employees in the organization, to identify the corporate culture prevailing in the organization, to study the level of work-life balance in the organization and things like that. So it will give a clear picture, about the situation prevailing in the organization, and based on that, HR managers often take decisions. And it solves various operational and planning problems in business and industry. It, research solves process-oriented problems in general. It serves as a basis for all government policies in our economic system. Definitely, government before framing any policy, right? They will perform an expert committee. In that, a couple of people will be assigned. They will take up a research project. They'll do an in-depth analysis, and then they submit a report to the government. And based on the report, only government frame policies. And it helps social scientists in studying social relationships and seeking answers to various social problems. Now, social scientists are those people who are concerned about the environment, about the society, about the people, relationships and things like that. So these people, research helps them in understanding, the relationships, and it helps them in, in identifying a possible solution to the social problems. And for students, research means a careerism. Definitely, students take up research as a career, right? People pursue MPhil or a PhD, to get a better job opportunity in an organization or in an institution. Right? So definitely, it's a way to attain higher education, higher position. For professionals in research, it means a good source of livelihood. For example, market intelligence companies are there, market survey companies are there. For them, research means a way of earning livelihood. Right? They take up surveys or they conduct studies for their customers, and that way they make money. Philosophers and thinkers, research means the outlet for new ideas and insights. These are the people who are always in search of new knowledge. Research quenches the thirst of these people by providing new information and new knowledge. For literary men and women, research means development of new styles and creative work. For example, somebody can take up a study in Tirukural to understand the HR concepts, um, given by Thiruvalluvar. So this is a creative work. For analysts and intellectuals, research means generalization of new theories. For example, you would have heard of Darwin's theory of human evolution. He says human beings have evolved from monkey. This is a theory based on his research. Right? Likewise, it helps intellectuals to come up with a new theory. Are there any problems in research? Yes, there are few. Research is not similar to science. Research is not 100% science. It is 80% science and 20% observation. We don't accept observation as science, right? And research variables are uncontrollable. Most of the cases, researcher has very less control or no control over the variables he is dealing with. And research depends upon human tendencies, right? For example, I had a fantastic weekend. I spent my week in a resort with my family, and you come to me on a Monday morning and ask, how is your work-life balance? I would say it is fantastic, right? But on the other side, if I had a bad weekend, somebody has pickpocketed my wallet, or my car broke down in between, and you ask me the same question on a Monday morning, probably my answer may not be the same. So it depends upon the situation. It depends upon the mentality or the mood of the responder at a particular scenario. And research needs a lot of time and money. The researcher should have a lot of patience, right? That's the reason, like, a couple of researchers take years together. I've seen people who pursue a single research for about 10 to 15 years, right? And research needs a lot of money, right? Without funds, you cannot take up a big study. Definitely, any researcher who wants to you know study a particular problem needs to shell a lot of money and time. And a lack of computerization, though these days it is not a problem, but then there are few things which you cannot put it in a computer, right? Because if you get things with values, for example, you're collecting the data in a 5-point Likert scale, concept. So those data you can actually give it, you can input it in your computer. But then, if you're getting descriptive answers, right, those things you cannot, put it. You cannot put it in your computer. You cannot analyze it with the help of a computer. Now, lack of scientific training and methodology of research. Definitely, there is any researcher for that matter will have very less, training in the area of methodology, right? Unless the researcher he himself has a passion for research, he'll find it very difficult, to cope up with the methodology. Insufficient interaction between university research departments and business establishments. Now, there is always a gap between the industry requirements and what the institution provides, right? So this has to be addressed, for effective or fruitful researches to happen in the country. Lack of confidence on part of respondents to give information. Uh, Most of the times, if the researcher fails to gain the confidence of the respondent, he may not get right information. The respondents may not give exact information if they feel that their data is not secure, or if they feel otherwise. Lack of code of conduct. There is no said, hard and fast rules for anybody to conduct a research. So there should be a proper code of conduct. Otherwise, this could also be a problem, for the research. Difficulty of adequate and timely secretarial assistance. Sometimes the researcher may not get adequate and, timely assistance from the authorities. This could also be a problem. Poor library management and functioning. For example, a researcher is looking for relevant data, relevant, articles, or relevant scholarly reports. Right? He goes to find those articles or those things in a library, and the books are, not properly organized. He may not get the right source or a data on that particular day. So this could also be a challenge for the researcher. Difficulty of timely availability of published data. This could also be a problem, but these days, there are a lot of gateways, research gateways, with which one can get a lot of relevant data and material. Researcher's ignorance can also be a problem, because if the researcher ignores something small, right, that small component, probably would prove to be significant on a later time, right? So that ignorance can also be a problem. And research for the sake of research, at limited practical utility, though they may use high sounding business jargon. Some people take up research for the sake of research, so it may not help, to come up with a proper research. So that's about it for now. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, do drop me a mail in my mail ID, or you can text me in my WhatsApp number also. Thank you so much. See you all in the next video.